There has been a total of 1,125 Formula One Grand Prix races in the history of our sport. Many of the greats of the sport have won huge numbers of these races. Hamilton is on 105 race wins, Schumacher on 91, and Max Verstappen is already somehow on 63 race wins. But what about those drivers that only took a single race victory throughout their entire career? What's their legacy in the sport? So I decided to go back and watch a bunch of old Formula One races to find the top 6 one-off race winners. From winning on your birthday to the closest finishes in F1 race history, this video has it all. Jean Alesi would win his one and only Formula One race at the 1995 Canadian Grand Prix, racing for Ferrari at the time. He would start the race in P5 alongside teammate Gerhard Berger. Going into the hairpin at turn 10, Mika Hakkinen and Johnny Herbert came together, bringing out the safety car. Behind the safety car in damp conditions, David Coulthard dropped his Williams car into the gravel. Because of the drama unfolding in front of him, Jean Alesi was now up to P3 in the race. But at the time, commentator Murray Walker was calling it early. This was going to be another dominant race for Michael Schumacher in the all-conquering Benetton car. Now that Alesi was up to P3, he was hunting down Damon Hill, but Schumacher was pulling away each lap. Later on in the race, Damon Hill would have to retire because of a gearbox issue, meaning that Alesi was now sat in P2 just behind Michael Schumacher, which, considering how uncompetitive the Ferrari was that year, a P2 finish was actually quite a good result. But come lap 57, Schumacher would suffer an electrical issue, meaning he had to make an emergency pit stop to replace his steering wheel. This pit stop added 70 seconds to Schumacher's race time and dropped him all the way down to P7. This now, of course, meant that Jean Alesi was leading the race. He spoke later in an interview with fellow driver David Coulthard and Eddie Jordan that when he took the lead of this race, he had literal tears in his eyes, and this was becoming a real issue in the braking zone. He said the tears would fly off of his face and hit the inside of his visor, making it almost impossible to see where he was going. After crossing the finish line, Alesi said that the feeling of winning that race was how he imagined winning a Formula One World Championship would be. He also compared the circuit to how Monza feels, in that it's very much a Ferrari circuit. Jean Alesi had chosen to race with the number 27 on his car to honour one of his heroes, Gilles Villeneuve, who of course was Canadian. To make things even better for Alesi, he won his only race on his 31st birthday. What an amazing story. Winning any Grand Prix is special, but winning at Monaco, that's the one all the drivers want to win. But winning it from 14th on the grid, that's a different story. The 1996 Monaco Grand Prix is one of the greatest races to have ever happened, not just in Formula One, just in any racing series. Michael Schumacher would take pole for this race with Olivier Panis all the way down in 14th place, so not many people were counting on Panis to win the race. When I say not many, literally no one. Not a single person in the world was predicting Olivier Panis to win this race. We would see 22 cars enter this Formula One race weekend, but on the warm-up session, our first victim fell. Andrea Montemini crashed out in the wet conditions on the warm-up session. 21 cars now remained. Going into turn 1, Damon Hill got past Michael Schumacher, who had a poor start. Our second victim fell at just turn 1 with Jos Verstappen hitting the barriers. Just after the Lowe's hairpin, Michael Schumacher took a little bit too much curb and ended up spinning into the barriers. By just the 10th lap, 10 more cars had either hit the barrier, hit each other, or decided that was enough racing for one weekend. Damon Hill was leading the race in comfortable fashion before he sprung an oil leak, causing his engine to catch fire coming out of the tunnel. This would mean that Jean Alesi was now leading the race, and he was surely thinking he was going to relive the high of Canada from the previous year. Alesi came in for an emergency pit stop suspecting a rear puncture. Unfortunately, this turned out to be a suspension failure and had to retire from the race. So on lap 62, Olivier Panis took the lead of the race with David Coulthard just 3 seconds behind. David Coulthard? So on lap 62, Olivier Panis took the lead of the race with David Coulthard just 3 seconds behind in the McLaren Mercedes. If this was any other racetrack, DC would have definitely gotten past, but this is Monaco. Olivier Panis managed to keep the lead and win his first ever Grand Prix at Monaco. French driver, French team winning at Monaco, what a story. This race also features one of the funniest, clumsiest Formula One crashes I've ever seen. Eddie Irvine came out of the Lowe's hairpin and binned it in basically the same place that Schumacher did. Mika Salo then came up and rear-ended him, then Mika Hakkinen came around the blind corner and then rear-ended Salo. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it, it's hilarious. Pastor Maldonado's time in Formula One was interesting, you could say, but the 2012 Spanish Grand Prix would prove to be a historic day for the Venezuelan driver. He secured an impressive P2 in his Williams car, just ahead of home hero Fernando Alonso and just behind the McLaren of Lewis Hamilton. But during scrutineering, Hamilton's car was found to be in breach of fuel regulations, promoting Maldonado to pole position on Sunday's race. Obviously, starting on pole position sounds fantastic, But if there's any driver you don't want in P2, it's Fernando Alonso, racing for Ferrari, in his home Grand Prix, fighting for a championship. At the start of the race, Fernando Alonso managed to muscle his way past Maldonado into turn 1 and kept the lead in the early stages of the race. Alonso would lead the race up until the pit stops came. Williams decided to pull an undercut on Fernando Alonso. Maldonado set a blistering outlap, and Fernando Alonso was stuck in traffic, so the lead now changed to Maldonado. On lap 45, Maldonado and Alonso both pitted for the final time, but Kimi Raikkonen stayed out. Kimi was now holding up Maldonado, and Fernando was getting closer with each lap. But on lap 47, Maldonado would get past Kimi Raikkonen into turn 1, putting a car between himself and Fernando Alonso. But Fernando was setting fastest lap after fastest lap, and on just the next lap he got past Kimi himself. This meant that Alonso had just 18 laps to close down the gap and win in front of his adoring home crowd. But Maldonado drove a fantastic race to the end, keeping the gap just comfortable enough that Fernando wasn't really a threat to him. And so Maldonado took his first Formula 1 race win, and he was also the 5th different race winner in the first 5 races of the 2012 season. I do feel a bit bad for Maldonado. He always ends up being the butt of the joke, or he gets memed quite a lot. So the fact that he was able to achieve his dream of winning a Formula 1 race must be very special. That being said, what I'd love you all to do is channel your inner Pastor Maldonado. Pretend the subscribe button is a barrier, you're Pastor Maldonado, smashing into the subscribe button. I do genuinely feel bad. I think Maldonado is actually quite an underrated driver. The 2004 Monaco Grand Prix was run like many other races are at that circuit on the Saturday afternoon during qualifying. Jarno Trulli's pole lap at this race was mightily impressive, but he was always a fast qualifier, able to put the car in positions it maybe shouldn't be. A combination of this and his knack for defensive driving led to the infamous term the Trulli train being coined. This is where Jarno Trulli would qualify in a much higher position than the car should be, keep everyone else behind him, and there was just a queue of cars as far as the eye could see. But there was drama before this race even started, with our 1996 winner Olivier Panis stalling on the grid, causing an aborted start. There was then another aborted start, caused this time by pole sitter Jarno Trulli, who spun coolant all over the circuit. It's funny how 2 drivers in this list both caused an aborted start at the same race. When the race finally got underway, the Italian driver got a fantastic start and led into turn 1, which is as good as winning the race in Monaco. The Renault team was set to take a 1-2 in the race with Fernando Alonso behind Jarno Trulli, but when Fernando Alonso tried to pass back marker Ralf Schumacher, the mixture of dirty air and being on the marbles on the outside of the circuit led to him crashing into the barrier and spinning out of the tunnel. And Fernando had some choice words to say about this. And by choice words, I mean this. This meant that Michael Schumacher was now just behind Jarno Trulli behind the safety car, but Trulli decided to pit and Schumacher stayed out. Schumacher was now leading the race, but behind the safety car, Schumacher was caught out by how slow it was going in the tunnel and ended up squeezing Montoya up against the barrier, causing him to crash out at the exact same spot that Fernando Alonso did. So now with some of the bigger names taken out of the race, it was down to Jarno Trulli and Jenson Button to fight it out in the dying laps for the race win. Both drivers were of course fighting for their first win in Formula 1. Jenson Button threw everything he had, but he just could not get past Jarno Trulli. Coming across the line, Trulli won by just 0.4 of a second from Jenson Button. The conductor of the Trulli train had finally won a Formula 1 race. Robert Kubica is one of the biggest what-if stories in Formula 1 history, and a driver as good as he is should have won far more than just a single Grand Prix. But this is the story of how he took his only Formula 1 race win. At the 2007 Canadian Grand Prix, Kubica suffered a terrifying crash. Hitting the wet grass, trying to overtake another car, he was sent flying into the barrier at full speed, shattering his car before drifting back on the track, narrowly avoiding other drivers. This impact would leave him unconscious, but the medical team was very quick to respond and he was taken to the medical centre. Thankfully, he was just left with a small concussion and a sprained ankle. Because of the injuries he sustained, he was not able to take part in the next race weekend at Indianapolis. This gave debut to a young German driver who at the time was leading the Formula Renault 3.5 series, Sebastian Vettel. I wonder if that Sebastian guy ever won any races. Now we all know that Formula 1 drivers are gladiators and they are not afraid of anything, but coming back to the circuit in 2008 must have felt a bit uncomfortable. Kubica did speak about this in an interview in 2019. He said he remembered doing the track walk on the Thursday, getting to the corner where he spun out on and feeling really strange, but once he got the helmet on and got back in the car, he said he wasn't even thinking about the crash he had the year before. The race weekend was far from smooth though, as in qualifying the track conditions were less than optimal. Large chunks of tarmac were coming off the surface of the racetrack at the turn 10 hairpin, causing many drivers to set uncompetitive times and others to spin off entirely. Kubica said in an interview afterwards that you had to take a very unique line through the turn 10 hairpin, which I think many drivers just didn't do. But Kubica would qualify in P2 just behind Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton was leading during the early phase of the race, but a safety car came out because of Adrian Suttel's gearbox failure. Because of the timing of the safety car, all the front-running teams decided to come into pit. But then came one of the clumsiest crashes in F1's history. The light at the end of the pit lane was red, so Kimi Raikkonen and Robert Kubica stopped at the exit, as they were supposed to do. But when Lewis Hamilton came out of the pit box, he smashed straight into the back of Kimi Raikkonen's car, taking them both out of the race, alongside with Nico Rosberg, who then crashed into the back of Lewis. Kubica was now leading the race, but he would have to pit again, and there were many drivers on a one-stop strategy. Kubica needed to build a 24-second lead above the one-stoppers to ensure he would take victory. But because of the strategy he was on, he had far fresher tyres and much lower fuel, meaning he could push like crazy to keep the lead. He was told by his engineer that he would need to put in 10 back-to-back qualifying laps, and that's exactly what he did. He, of course, managed to build the gap, make the pit stop, and then win by a comfortable margin of 16 seconds. After the race, he was even leading the World Championship for a small amount of time. Unfortunately, the BMW Sauber team didn't develop the car any further for the year, which led to them dropping off in competitiveness. They decided to go all in for the 2009 regulations, but unfortunately they didn't get it right. While taking part in a rally event in 2011, Kubica suffered a terrible accident. He was stuck in the car for over an hour before the rescue team could get him out. Once he was out of the car, he was flown to the hospital but needed a partial forearm amputation. He did end up making a return to rallying in 2012 and actually won on his first race back, which is absolutely insane. It really does make you wonder what could have been for Robert Kubica. Peter Gethin won his one and only race at the 1971 Italian Grand Prix at Monza. This is not only his one and only win, it's also his one and only podium. As is quite often the case with these older races, reliability played a huge part in this. If you take a look at the season's results, there was only 11 rounds, but a total of 99 DNFs throughout the season. That's an average of 9 DNFs per race. Can you imagine 9 DNFs in a race these days? If we have more than 3 cars go out, the commentators are calling it a race of attrition. Obviously, this race was quite a bit before my time, so there's a couple of drivers that I didn't recognise, but there is a few that I did. You had the likes of Sir Jackie Stewart, who was the eventual championship winner that year. You've got the Brazilian legend and 2-time Formula 1 champion, Emerson Fittipaldi, as well as Mr. Monaco himself, Graham Hill, father of Damon Hill. One of Gethin's teammates was a young Austrian driver by the name of Helmut Marko. Yes, that Helmut Marko. Gethin would line up in P11 for the BRM team. Unfortunately, the Tifosi were not treated to a Ferrari pole, but Clay Regazzoni would start in 4th position and be leading the race by the end of lap 1. However, by lap 7, world champion Jackie Stewart had taken the lead in the dominant Tyrrell Ford car. But this is Formula 1 racing in the 70s, so it's about time for some cars to start giving up the ghost. By lap 16, Jackie Stewart and Jackie Ickx had both retired from engine failures, followed soon by Clay Regazzoni. And of course, many other drivers would soon follow suit. This race featured 13 cars DNF, 1 car DNS and 3 cars withdrawn from the weekend. The race quickly split into 2 groups. You had the fast cars up front battling it out for the lead, while the slow back markers were 5 seconds a lap slower, getting in everyone's way. The lead changed hands multiple times throughout the race, but Peter Gethin crossed the line in first place, just 0.01 seconds ahead of second place Ronnie Peterson. Not only is this the closest win in Formula 1 history, but the top 5 drivers were separated by 0.61 seconds. The video of the cars crossing the line is utterly wild. Not to mention the bravest man on the grid that day, the man waving the checkered flag just inches away from where the cars were flying past. There is a couple of honourable mentions I want to shout out as well. First of all, Pierre Gasly winning in Monza in 2020. That was such an amazing race to witness. The redemption arc that Gasly took, being dropped from the Red Bull team, demoted to the junior team, only to come back and win a Formula 1 race. Also, fellow Frenchman Esteban Ocon winning the Hungarian Grand Prix in 2021, but because these drivers are active, I didn't want to include them in the list because they could go on to win more races. Although Ocon driving for Haas and Gasly driving for the Alpine, maybe they won't be winning races anytime soon. But with the new regulations for 2026, who knows what's going to happen. If you're looking forward to the 2025 season as much as I am, check this video out I did on the 2025 Formula 1 rookies. It covers everything that you need to know about them. There we have it. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I had a great time making this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Let me know down in the comments what your favourite race was, or if there's any that I did miss out. This was video number 8 on the channel, and we just hit 900 subscribers, so thank you so much to each and every one of you for subscribing. If you're not already subscribed, please make sure that you are. I'd love to reach 1,000. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.